Before we dive in, a quick shout out to Elastic Perception for supporting our show. Check out their amazing astral projection course. Link is down below. Enjoy the podcast. The man that needs no introduction, today's guest is Billy Carson. Anything that would be cool to do as a human, this guy has done it. Entrepreneur, best-selling author. He's got a tech company. He's got a space company. He's a leading researcher in consciousness, history, ancient civilizations. Today we have a masterclass in manifestation that is so ridiculously perfect that is going to blow your minds. After talking to Billy for so long, one of the most impressive things is his vast knowledge on several subjects. We get into financial literacy today, what the pyramids were about, what's going on with the UFOs, what is the game plan and end game for some of the elites and the mainstream media. Everything in today's podcast has practical application, so no matter where you are in your life or what you're doing, this podcast can give you a springboard to a better life and help you reach your maximum potential.
The era that we live in right now today, in this technocratic civilization that we built, the knowledge and the information that had been stored in these texts, tablets, cylinder scrolls, papyruses, and even these ancient structures, these megalithic structures all around the world, the knowledge there was meant for us today. It's an actual time capsule, which is why this stuff was put into formats that were going to be very hard to eradicate, delete, or erase.
Throw us some love, people. We need some reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I don't care what you say. You could just go list what you had for breakfast this morning. Just leave us a 5-star review. It would really mean a lot to us. Also, check out our sponsors. The list is right down below. We will see you guys later. Did I already say to check out our Rumble? Check it out. Enjoy the podcast.
𝗪𝗡𝗟𝗡.
All right, people, welcome back. A man who needs no introduction, someone who I've been a fan of a very long time, and is back by popular demand, I must say. The people want to hear more from you, Mr. Billy Carson. How you doing?
Well, doing great, brother. Thank you for having me back on.
Yeah, so we, as always, are not going to be able to delve into the secrets of the universe, but as a start, maybe just for those people who don't know you, even though I know most of our followers here do, maybe you can tell us who you are and what you've done. Sure.
Well, my name is Billy Carson. I'm the founder of Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4. That's why I do the hand sign. It's not a Mason sign. It's the number 4. You got to tell them that. But Forbidden Knowledge is a company been in existence since 2014 and primarily focused on and centered on the knowledge of ancient civilizations, the real ancient knowledge, going back far beyond the mainstream. Also metaphysics, quantum physics, sciences, aerospace technologies, inspiration, motivation, affirmations, everything motivational, inspirational, and knowledge-based is what we're all about. We have a streaming TV platform called Forbidden Knowledge TV, and that company now is 3 years old, doing phenomenal on the streaming platforms, as well as our book publishing company, Forbidden Knowledge Book Publishing, our record label, Forbidden Knowledge Music, and of course, our e-commerce, web development, and our content creation company. So it's a conglomerate of companies, all dedicated and predicated on bringing consciousness to the human race. And, I've been on this journey for a very long time, since I was a little kid, researching out of encyclopedias, going all the way up now to traveling around the world. I've been around the world over 20 times, been to ancient sites, talked with indigenous leaders, sages, wisdom keepers from all around the world, touched my hands on these ancient sites, did a lot of the studies, been to advanced technology conferences like the Space Symposium with my tech company, and took a course at MIT in applied neuroscience and a class at Harvard for ancient civilizations. But just to bolster my bio, but I'm a 4 times now best-selling author and very excited to be on this podcast.
I love it. Yeah. So obviously, as you guys can all see here, it would be impossible for me to do that intro. And I want to go straight into, we kind of left off last time, because last time we were speaking, I think it was maybe a little over a year ago, the Epic of Humanity wasn't out yet. So just a brief touch on to what people can find in that.
Oh, yeah. The Epic of Humanity, and thank you for that. The Epic of Humanity is finally here. It's been a long time coming. It's a book co-written by myself and 𝗪𝗪𝗂𝗧, another best-selling author. And to me, besides myself, he's one of the other foremost leaders in ancient texts, scriptures, papyruses from all around the entire world. I would put him in the category as the elite of the elite in that category. And I'm so blessed and pleased and happy that I was able to co-write this book with 𝗪𝗪𝗂𝗧. His contributions are phenomenal. And this book is literally going to give you over 200,000 years of history, and it has the most ancient texts and tablets and references to them with the actual text from those tablets in one book in the world. No other book is like this book. No other book has this many references to these ancient texts and tablets that actually puts them together, that paints a puzzle and connects all the dots, like the book of the Epic of Humanity. We're talking everything from Sumerian cuneiform, and we're talking about the Sumerian, we're talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Mahabharata, the 𝗏𝗡𝗏, the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, Etana. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And then we're going into the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Indian Vedas, all the way into some of the texts coming out of the Mayans, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is really the Egyptian Book of Going Forth by Day. We get deep into the connection between the Kings list coming out of Egypt and the connection to the Sumerian Kings list. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, the amount of knowledge that's imparted into this, all the connection between all the cultures through the Pleiadian star system and why it's connected that way. It's really a huge knowledge base for somebody who's really wanting to get their mind finally wrapped around what is this thing about the Anunnaki and the Atlanteans, and what does it all mean? Who are these people, and how have they impacted our civilization from ancient times till this very current day?
Mm. And one of the things that's always fascinated me has been the connection between all of these, you know, picking up these little, okay, this culture over here has this sort of knowledge. And then you go to Peru and all of a sudden they have the same thing that was their understanding in Cambodia or Bolivia or wherever. And one of the questions I asked you last time, and I want to know if you can go further and more in depth into it now. I think I was asking you all of these understandings. We have these stories about Atlantis. We have these stories about our past and humans understanding something greater than what we understand now in our technological age. Could you give us an idea of what that true knowledge is specifically as it applies to us as in a practical sense, which I always like to do for people to try and get it, because people can be interested in it, but then they'll say, that's interesting, and then they'll just go back to TikTok. Right. And so I want to understand. I want them to know not only that this is there, but why and what it specifically they were saying that meant for you as a human doing your everyday life.
Well, we must understand that the era that we live in right now today, in this technocratic civilization that we built, the knowledge and the information that had been stored in these texts, tablets, cylinder scrolls, papyruses, and even these ancient structures, these megalithic structures all around the world, the knowledge there was meant for us today. It's an actual time capsule, which is why this stuff was put into formats that were going to be very hard to eradicate, delete, or erase. And the evidence of us now catching up to our level of technocratic civilization, being able to go back and decipher what was there and putting together the pieces of the puzzle, like myself and Matthew LaCroix, like you, Will, and many others, helping people to see that the past is prologue. What happened in the past is destined to happen again in the future, and that we must get a correct understanding of exactly and specifically, to the best of our ability, understand what happened back then, so we don't recreate the mistakes of old, and also that we can free ourselves from the bonds of this matrix slavery that we've been put into without even knowing it. When we've been born, we've been given a name, a race, and a religion, and we spend the rest of our life defending that false identity, and we have no idea why, how, when, where. The answer goes back into the ancient past. How can we change our ability to manifest the reality we want to see on this planet today? How can we affect change in economic systems and prison systems and healthcare systems and education systems? It all starts in these ancient texts and tablets. So if we can understand the manipulation, if we can understand how the boot got put on the neck to begin with, and we can open our eyes and begin to realize that this is an artificial construct that we ourselves as human beings did not want to create. We would not want to impart this onto ourselves like this for generations. Then we can begin to release this boot from our neck. Also, on top of that, uncovering evidence of these advanced technologies, which means if we can uncover them, if Billy Carson can sit in an office or a room halfway around the world and uncover and unlock these mysteries, that means that governments and high-tech companies of the world have also done this and probably put some of these things into actual practical use, which means that there's potentially suppressed technologies that can make life so much easier on this planet, but it's being trickled drop by drop by drop, given to us in this format that allows for capitalization. Imagine if we could finally wake up and realize what's going on and free ourselves from the bondages of this trickle down tech and give ourselves the ability to tap into technology that can ease the burden of man and also increase our lifespans. So that's why, to me, this stuff is so, so important, because it's a huge part of what's been keeping us down. The lack of actual knowledge is what's keeping us down. There's a famous verse that, it's actually a biblical verse. It says, "My people die for a lack of knowledge." And it's so factually true. That one statement is so factually true, the lack of knowledge. It doesn't mean that we're dumb or we're stupid. The fact that it's been withheld and we don't even know where to look to find it is why we have to continue to put this kind of information out.
The craziest thing about all this is because as you start to go, let's call it levels, up the levels, or it's really like it's an uncovering and it's a remembering. And I think I've said this before, but as you get to piece each little, it's like peeling off a piece of the onion. You're like, that's not true. Okay, well, what else isn't true? Well, that's not true. That's not right. And then this isn't right. And you're like, I always thought that was a little bit weird. And then you start to see that there's some sort of insane veil placed upon almost everyone for what you are, who you are, how you're supposed to act, and what you're supposed to believe. And then you start realizing that it may have been, may have been manipulated with. Yeah. And people have just, and you live in this false world. You touched on time, and that's another thing that people have a very hard time dealing with, and even myself included, especially coming from just a traditional educational upbringing where time is linear, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And as you get deeper into maybe sort of a study of meditation and all these other things, you start to hear these things or read these things about nonlinear time, about everything being now, right? Eckhart Tolle has the book, The Power of Now, and the whole thing is trying to get you to understand that everything is now, past, present, and future. Could you touch a little bit on what the ancients understood of nonlinear time and how that affected their daily lives,
Absolutely. When you look into these ancient beings called the Anunnaki, which, by the way, that means those from heaven came to earth. It doesn't mean one race of people. It's a multi-race of beings that came from different star systems. According to all these different texts, they tell you what star systems they're hailing from. And what's interesting is these beings that came from heaven to earth, they built this Atlantean civilization. Now, some of them, these high ruling elite of these people, they were ranked by a numeric system. That's how you know what ranking they were in terms of how elite their status was. They call themselves the ordainers of destiny. And through this method of calling themselves the ordainers of destiny, what they did was they literally utilized a couple of really incredible metaphysical techniques to envision a future reality. They understood, according to these texts, that multiple future realities were playing out on timelines at once. And so what they would do is they would focus and hone in on a particular future timeline that they themselves wanted to see play out and manifest during their lifetime in that same reality tunnel. And then once they isolated that specific timeline that they want to see play out, they would literally then go through these steps of meditation to manifest that reality into existence. And then they will put action behind anything that needed to be done to make sure that that reality that they ordained was manifest. So they understood an equation that I came up with, which is conscious thought multiplied by action equals manifestation. They enacted that or put that directly into this ordainer of destiny system that they came up with. And from the perspective of what I've read now, it seems that they've hit it right on the head. They were right. They were able to literally create realities that they themselves wanted to see based on understanding timelines, that time operates on something called superposition, that all realities and future realities are happening all at once. And they understood that they can send out a conscious wave of thought, which is a wave of light. And that wave of light would leave their skull. And on top of that wave is embedded or encoded the data to carry into the future to create the reality. So that's the same thing we as humans do. Every time we think, a light wave leaves our skull. We know this because we can capture those light waves on an EEG and send it to a computer. We can't see it with the human eye, but it's there because we can only see 1% of the light spectrum. What's on top of those light waves? Our conscious thoughts. Our data piggybacks the beam of light. Just like a cell phone is connected via a beam of light called a microwave. And then the data, the zeros and ones, piggybacks or rides that beam to the tower. That's how we send and receive information digitally from a cell phone. Our heads are doing the same exact thing. So they realized that this was happening, and they realized that they could send out a conscious wave thought pattern into the future, and that conscious wave thought pattern would go into the future and alter their reality in the third dimension. And we as humans, we have the same exact power. We just don't know it, or maybe don't even believe it. But every single day, we utilize those types of manifestation things to bypass our understanding of time. They knew that the past, present, and future happens all at once and happens in multiple ways all at once. But they learned how to isolate specific futures that they wanted, which we have the same capability of doing.
The part that gets me that's interesting, because you said that either people don't believe that it's happening or they don't know. And one of the things that I found for people who don't yet have a true understanding of how precious your thoughts are for manifesting what you want in your life is because of the undisciplined mind, right? Having a mind that's fractured by social media, by whatever, ADHD is how they want to call it, or whatever it is. And without a disciplined, concentrated mind, it's exactly like usually they talk about how a magnifying glass, concentrated force, light comes through, it's very concentrated, whereas a lamp where the light just, it goes wherever it wants to, right? Which one do you have more force on? And so keeping it within the practical before we head off of this point, we mentioned this before, but along with meditation, is there something to do that can multiply that force, right? So say someone who is watching and listening to this is saying, all right, that sounds great, Billy.
Yeah.
But I can't get to this point. What about people who need to get to this point of having a disciplined mind so then they can then focus on the thing that they want and then take steps into making that happen? What should they do?
Well, the first thing they need to do is become extremely specific about what they want. A lot of people are very ambiguous about what they really want. They really don't know what they want. They have an idea what they want, but they haven't gotten so specific with it that they can isolate it. And the reason why that's important is because the universe is a mirror. It's going to give you back what you give it. So if I say to you, what are you trying to manifest? And you say a car, and I say, well, what kind of car do you want? And you go, well, something that can fit into my budget to get me from A to B. Well, that's not much of an accurate description of what you really want, because I can go around the corner to the junkyard and give that guy $150 and go get you a hoopty and bring it right back to you. That'll get you from A to B for a little while at least. It's got a lot of rust and it's going to fall apart in 2 weeks. So you didn't get specific enough. You need to understand the color, the make, the model, the wheels, alloy, chrome, whatever they are, the interior, what type of stereo system, what type of engine's in there, how many liters, how many valves, all this stuff. You want to know. You want to go test drive the car. Even if you don't have the money to actually buy it at that moment, go test drive it and drive it like you own it. Focus on it, meditate on it. In your meditation, you're actually believing it's yours. Not meditating that you hope you get it, not meditating, hoping, and wishing. That's low frequency. Meditating, commanding it into existence and that it's yours already and you claim it. In the meditation, I'm driving to my friend's house to show my friends my brand new car. I'm driving to my family's house to show them my brand new car. That's the power of creating this reality tunnel that you can control. And then sure enough, what will begin to happen, opportunities will begin to come your way. The universe is going to begin to send you opportunities that will allow you to connect to the thing you're trying to manifest. It could be a job opportunity. It could be a connection that you help somebody with something else, and that connection to a person that says, hey, I'd love to be involved with something you're doing, and buys your service or your product. All these different things can begin to coalesce for you, and that's where you have to have discernment to realize what the connection is between them and what your end result is going to be. And so once you execute and put an energy exchange in for those things, the end result eventually will be the thing you're trying to manifest. So to magnify becomes, it just takes focus, doing positive affirmations, speaking positively, thinking and believing as if you already own it, not thinking and wishing and hoping and praying, but actually believing and commanding that it exists. That's how you magnify your power to the universe, and being very specific, and you'll get the same thing back that you give out.
Yeah, that certainty is one of the things I think a lot of people struggle with. And I think we struggle with it also because we live in a society, as well, as crazy as many things are, a whole lot of people within the middle class, most people are in the middle class. That's why it's called the middle class for the most part. And it's big in most Western nations, even in some other, let's say, second world nations. You kind of got what you need. I got enough to eat. I'm not going to die. You know, my house it's got this. You know, I don't have a lot. And so a lot of times I've noticed that you're just getting by. And so you kind of hope and wish for something that's better, but you don't specific, because almost anything I have not seen when you want it, and you've decided that it's that thing, it's that car, it's that job, it's that person, it's over here, that I'm going to this country, whatever, you pretty much get it. Yeah. Like the universe kind of, and it doesn't end up being a struggle, which is one of the funny things that I've seen as well, is that it's not a struggle. Once you decide, the universe is pushing for you, you know? Yeah. And so it changes the way.
If you're watching this podcast, you're probably fascinated with stories of guys like Tom Campbell and Robert Monroe getting out of their bodies, astral projecting, and going to explore the entire universe. And if you've ever wanted to try and do something like this yourself, you're aware of how hard it is to find good content, which is why we have to thank today's sponsor, Elastic Perception. What Florentine and the guys at Elastic Perception have done is break down the entire process of astral projection into a way and format that you can follow from anywhere you are at. You're going to learn different methods. You're going to learn the understanding of these ancient teachings and practices. You're going to learn what this means to you right now, spiritually, how it can affect your life directly. Everything you've ever wanted to learn and do within astral projection, you can find here in this course in its simple, bite-sized format. And then on top of it, something I have never seen is that they can offer coaching with experts in this field for you to progress in your journey. Check out Elastic Perception. Link is right down below. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
But I want to go off this topic to something way different, because we discussed this as well, but it seems as though things have ramped up. The whole UFO situation has seemed in the last, I don't know, month to 2 months now. We got the jellyfish UFO. One of my friends said, "Hey, have you seen it?" I hadn't seen it. You know, what are we to take for all this? So many people feel that the hologram thing, I asked you about that. They think this is going to be the hologram. Is this going to be are we leading? Is something coming? Or what's your take on that?
Well, we have this situation now where the government wants to control the narrative. The military-industrial complex, they want to control the narrative of UFOs. Now they're UAPs because they even want to control the name, the terminology even being used, they want to control. And the reason why they want to control it is to make money. So what we're seeing here is a situation where it's going to become almost indistinguishable between what may be alien and what might even be ours, what might even be a hologram. Those three things are going to play in real time at the same time, and we're gonna see that like we're seeing it now. We don't know what to believe anymore. Now they got us off balance again, which is exactly where they want us, completely questioning every single thing that pops up because we don't know if it's real, fake, theirs, ours. And so that was the actual psyop that they put out there, and it's working like a charm, because I'm in the same boat with everybody else. I don't know if this thing is real or if it's fake. Is it a hologram? Is it real? But I do know this. Every major war to fight on this planet has pretty much been fought in this age. There's a couple going on right now over some resources, they're trying to steal some resources in Ukraine, and they want to steal some resources in Palestine or whatever. But at the end of the day, the big wars coming out of the military-industrial complex headed out of the United States, those wars are pretty much, we did everybody in. We took money and resources from everybody. We installed puppet dictators all over the world. And the reason why that's important to say is because that means those wars and those takeovers created a lot of money for the military and for the government and for the private investors and those corporations that got those projects, those black budget projects. So now what is the next big push to get money? And the public is getting tired of hearing about this 15 trillion missing, 17 trillion missing, 20 trillion missing. Now they said, okay, we got it. Space Force. We got a Space Force now. So don't be surprised if you see a UAP strike one of our vessels in the ocean with some type of a weapon, and then all of a sudden that gives the green light for the U.S. government or the military to say, hey, we need unlimited amount of money now to build space weapons, and we got to build defense, a space defense, and we got to build a space shield, and we got to blah, 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 blah. That turns into trillions of dollars in private monies that are going to projects from corporations that bid to the Pentagon. The Pentagon takes in money from the tax dollar. They keep a cut. The money then goes out to these private corporations to build this futuristic technology on a lot of it R&D basis. A lot of it will never, ever be used. And a lot of the people that are sitting on those boards are tied in, or they're in bed with the Pentagon people, and they're all taking money underneath the table. They're getting paid as the board of directors on these corporations. A lot of these projects will never see the light of day, and a lot of them will fail, but after they've collected billions. Sometimes they come back 3 or 4 times, like on a fighter jet, and say, you know what? This one just didn't work out. Send us another 10 billion. We'll work on it a little bit more. Then 10 years later, they go out to scrap. We can't. It won't work. We got to start fresh with a whole new plan. And we'll go ahead and give us another 20 billion and we'll start a brand new plan. This happens all the time. So by doing this Space Force, by creating an artificial threat from space, all of a sudden we have this, well, they have this huge stream of unlimited resources coming at them that will never be stopped. And the people will be in 100% in agreement with it, and they won't be crying and screaming, where'd all the money go? Oh, please take our money and protect us from the aliens, is what's going to be said. And so that's where we're going with this whole thing.
What about the end game for the elites overall, right? Because if this is about money, why do we need the money? What do they need this money for in control? Like if you already have the military industrial complex and they have control of the military for majority of countries, why not just do things by force? They have a lot of people living by fear. It's easy to do this alien attack. I mean, it's still, I mean, even as you say this, I mean, you could get, one country to attack another, and the second that happens, they can still say, hey, we need all the money to take this country, So what is the real end game? That's what I would love to speculate on.
Yeah, they really believe that they're masters of neuroscience, that they're masters of applied neuroscience. They believe that they're masters at it, and they've done a phenomenal job, but people are starting to wake up. The key thing that they like to do is they like to create the problem, watch the reaction, and provide a solution. And then they like to continue to keep the people enslaved without them thinking that they're slaves. So everybody's running around here, we're voting and we're participating and we're doing everything you guys say we're supposed to do, and I'm a good citizen, not realizing that they're nothing but good slaves. And so that is their technique to keep everything going and keep the whole civilization functioning, because you need everybody from the level of washing a car all the way to a person at the top that can press a button in a major corporation and make things happen. So you have to have the lowest to the highest, and everything needs to be functioning because everything is so intricately connected like an ecosystem. And so the best thing to do is to keep people distracted and keep them thinking that they're not slaves. You're not a slave. Just like the Anunnaki did to the people back in the ancient times. They masqueraded as gods, and the people did all that work for them, brought them all these offerings. What we think they were bringing offerings for? Because these people weren't going to go hunt. They got the offerings from the people that were mental slaves to them, and they were happy to bring them their first offerings of their sheep or their slain lambs or their first harvest. So these people were going to eat that food. That's what it's for, so they can eat. But the people who brought it to them, they're like, man, this is great. I'm serving the gods. And so it's the same exact mentality we have going on right now, where we're enslaved and we don't even believe that we're enslaved.
And that's the easiest way, obviously, to do it. You don't do it by force. Force is your first one, right? So, right, like I said, that causes problems. It's easy to fight back against an enemy when you know exactly where they are, where they're coming from. It's really hard when I have to convince you that you're a slave or that you have to fight back against something. And with that in mind, you are a very financially intelligent human being, and we have this whole new space to navigate in crypto as well. I don't know if I've ever heard you talk about that yet. What is your take with that whole thing as it applies to us?
Yeah, and that's a good topic to talk about. I mean, I did a book called Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, which is a bestseller in 4 countries, financial literacy book. And in that book, I didn't touch on crypto. I did touch on the stock market, though. I did a whole stock market masterclass before as well. But crypto is something I've been heavily involved in now for just a little bit over a year. And I literally signed up with this company called ARC, A-R-C, and became a student of the ARC to learn it from the inside out and learn how to do crypto in a way where I'm not just buying coins and hoping that they go up. That's one way of doing it, but it's kind of haphazard and you never really know what's going on. By doing it as a student of the ARC and learning how to create my own bank. So now I created my own bank, and I fund liquidity pools for cryptos. And in that, by doing so, I make money the way the banks make money. So, and when you put your money in the bank and you go to sleep at night, they take your money out of your account and sweep it. They call it a sweep. They sweep it out and they invest in all kind of things, make money on it. Then they put it back in your account before you wake up. Well, I'm doing the same thing through crypto by funding liquidity pools. There's two ways to do crypto. One is to be on all these mainstream apps. Those mainstream apps are not DeFi. They're not decentralized finance. Those mainstream apps are still connected to central finance, which means they can go down at any moment, and so can your coins. I have my crypto on a device which is sitting right across the room from me right now, actually. I can't reach it from here, but it's a hard wallet. So my money, all my crypto and my NFTs go into a hard wallet that I can take with me anywhere in the world. And they can never be stolen from me. And then I can connect it to a computer. I can log in. I can authorize through codes on my hard wallet, manual codes that I put in, to transfer, convert, swap, exchange, and send money anywhere in the world in seconds, just like that, as well as all the profits that I generate and create are transferred into my account automatically. And by that method, I'm operating on the DeFi platform and not the centralized platform. So if Coinbase goes down, or FTX, like it did, went down, or any other one, Robinhood goes down, I'm like, okay, and I still have all my crypto. I have everything I own on my hard wallet, and it's in a fireproof safe when I'm not around, when I'm not using it. So I do it in a slightly different way. And there is a link, maybe I can send it to you for your viewers, so they can register for my free webinars. I do free webinars on this all the time. Once a month, I do a free webinar, and it's, they can click the link, they can sign up for a free webinar, and I'll walk them through it step by step. I really do believe that in order for us to change this economic matrix that we're living in, we need to move, we meaning the people, need to move into DeFi, where everything is accountable. The government won't get on DeFi because they don't want to be accountable to us for what they're doing with the money. We'd be able to see everything that they're doing and be like, hey, what are you doing over here? That's not what this money is for. That's why they're operating in the central system, where they can actually control it and hide it from us. In the DeFi, decentralized finance, it is a public blockchain. Investments and everything else that you do are right there. You have a public ledger that anyone can access the wallets. And to me, that is the future of economics and exchange for the world.
Yeah, it really seems like that's where we're obviously heading. For those people who are still on the edge, and I'm going to ask you this question here next because you got such a vast knowledge on so many things. But I had the guest on, Robert Breedlove, who is a big crypto proponent and of Bitcoin, and he mentioned Bitcoin Standard, which was a book that was the first book I read, I think in a while, like a 2019 maybe, in order to try and get an understanding of what this is. And the very first part of it dealt only with trying to understand what is money, and also how you've been screwed over from the Federal Reserve to why inflation doesn't always have to happen, because people that are around my age have just known inflation. Like things just get okay, it's just how it happens. Well, wait a second. That's not actually how it's supposed to be. And so, for anybody that's out there, apart from obviously we're going to be linking to all your books and the free webinars, what else did you use in order to get some of the knowledge? I mean, you must be well read in other things. Do you have any books that would get into these subjects, not just crypto, but potentially meditation, spirituality? And I definitely want to talk a little bit about the Emerald tablets as well.
Sure, definitely.
So yeah, do you have any suggestions for people that are trying to dig into this and understand?
When I got into finance, how I wrote my book, Woke Doesn't Mean Broke, was a lot of really over 3 decades of me running as an entrepreneur, running my own businesses and companies and corporations, learning from the ground up, making a lot of mistakes, taking L's for learning, not for losses, and learning and building from those, and redeveloping and reinventing myself several times till I got to the point where I am today. And so there wasn't any one specific book. I probably went through hundreds of books and hundreds of workshops and online classes and research into how can I become a better financially literate person. And eventually I achieved a high level of financial literacy, and I really set myself and my family up right. I decided to go and build myself a legacy. And when you look into building legacy, If you Google just that alone, how to build a legacy for your family, you're going to see 1,000 things pop up that you can go in and begin to dig into and research when it comes to financial literacy. And then when you look into, if you're looking into knowledge on, ancient civilizations, well, I did a whole workshop on Forbidden Knowledge TV, and I only got through just under half of my books. I think I got to 480 books that I picked up each book one at a time for 4 hours. And I was showing the books and talking about the books and what's in the books and why you should read the book. I did that for 4.5 hours. So I just got so tired I couldn't talk anymore. I said, I'll come back and do the other half of the books later. It's like 1,000 something books. Yeah. But I never got to the second half, but there's so many books. A great start, though, is my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson, because it says a beginner's guide. And that's going to get you started there. Another great book to read is The Gods of Eden, Gods, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. Amazing book. That's where I learned about inflation in ancient times. That's the first time I heard or learned that inflation actually existed beyond what I knew it to be was in that book. And we have hundreds of thousands of stone tablet IOUs, like dollar bills made of stone, that say IOU back then, and for the amount of value that they were attributed to, and what you can get for those IOUs as well. And it proved and showed that an inflationary system was installed on mankind thousands and thousands of years ago, and we're still in the same exact system till this very, very day.
Yeah. And studying that, because it does, Bitcoin Center touches on it very, very slightly. But the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, which I haven't read yet entirely, there's this character, Thoth, right? Is it Thoth or Thoth? I don't know how we pronounce it, but I think Thoth.
You can say Thoth or Thoth. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then there's is it the Hermetica or not the Hermetica? Hermetica is another interesting book.
Yeah.
But what's his
Hermes
name?
Trismegistus. That's the same person. Hermes Trismegistus.
The same person. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this guy's teachings, I remember actually seeing a clip in which someone was discussing how that this entity, person, being was real. And someone was debating that it wasn't real. But what they both could come together on was that the knowledge that he or it passed on was tremendous and crucial. And knowing that you wrote this, I wanted to ask you just if you could sum up in some ways what that is that was so important that was passed on to mankind.
Yeah. And first of all, I do believe that it was a real entity, a real being, because the ancient Egyptians claimed that he ruled over the land of Kemet before it was Egypt for 16,000 years. So yeah, I think he was a real person. And so did the Mayans of Chichen Itza and Teotihuacan and the Aztecs as well. And I mean, I can go around the world. In Australia, he was known as 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗪 to the Australians. He was known as Wang Di as the first emperor of China. He was known as Thor, Odin, Mercury in Europe. I mean, this guy's been everywhere. And, he's 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗁𝗪, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗁𝗃𝗀𝗀. I mean, I can just keep going on and on and on. Many, many names over many eons around this entire planet. His influence has been incredible. And he is the bringer of knowledge to the world, to mankind, the teacher of languages. And so we're talking about a person that's extremely important, an extremely important figure in history that really was the person that created the blueprint for building an advanced city. So if you look at Kemet, you find out that in the Emerald Tablets, in the opening scene, the floodwaters are beginning to reside, and this guy is coming there with a crew. He's coming on a ship. Now, this ship doesn't sail out into the ocean. It says that upward we rose into the morning, upward we rose into the sky, until the earth disappeared. We're talking about a ship that's going into space. And then when he gets to the place appointed and the time appointed, he looks beneath the ship and he sees the people of the land of the children of Chem, and he sees ancient temples coming up out of the mud. So he descends from the sky down to the land, opens his door, and he comes out with a crew, and those people come to attack him because obviously they're trying to defend their territory or whatever. He holds up his staff and he sends out a ray of vibration at these people, which stops them still like fragments of stone of the mountain. So he has a stun gun that freezes people in place and prevents them from attacking, just like we have this active denial system in the military. It does the same exact thing. I talk about it in my book. It's an identical frequency beam weapon that's non-lethal. And then he begins to rebuild the land of Chem. He says, I'm here to bring you back up to a high level of civilization. bring back up. We're talking about previously it was already at a high level before this master, this huge great flood. Now he's here to come and teach them how to become masters of their own destiny again and rebuild civilization. And then he tells his crew, once they rebuild the land of Kem completely, which took years, he said, now go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. And that's why no matter where you go on this planet, you'll see similar structures, similar building techniques. All around the entire planet, we see the evidence of this advanced culture, advanced knowledge, and advanced wisdom, all really coming, bottlenecking from one master architect and also intelligencer that then went and visited these kingdoms all around the world and left his fingerprint there everywhere you could think.
And one of the most well-known, obviously, being this Egyptian society that almost everyone shares an obsession with. Could you speculate on, as best you could, on what the hell the pyramids were actually for? Because they definitely weren't just tombs. It wasn't just a place to put a pharaoh, as I know that's the traditional discussion. And it's like, once you go there too, because I've been, and it's like, no, that's not what this, I mean, I don't know what it is, but that's not it. That's not it. Yeah.
When you look at the Great Pyramid, for example, it definitely is not a tomb. I mean, you can clearly see there's no hieroglyphs in there. When you begin to look at what's been discovered in some of the hidden shafts, and I've been all in and throughout that pyramid into so many places that people in this world will never even get a chance to see. I just took 140 people there in October on a private tour, and I stayed inside the Great Pyramid for over 6 hours. Even went down the subterranean shaft, which nobody gets a chance to go down. And there's markings in some of these little tiny tunnels and shafts that are markings like electrical markings, positive, negative, grounding. There's also an aspect of the Great Pyramid, they call it the Queen's Chamber, which looks like an electrolysis unit that would extract hydrogen from the water and shoot it through the shafts. There's so much technology built into this thing, I come to understand that it now is a multifunctional stone computer and a power generator. It does both. And even inside the king's chamber, where there seems to be this crystal granite box, that crystal granite box was added to that room at a much later date. You can tell by the way it's constructed and the way it's sitting there. And that box is the same dimensions as the Ark of the Covenant, which means that's what used to sit inside of it. More than likely, because as the Nile meandered away from the pyramid, you had a situation where the water that was running underneath the crystal granite was not creating any more physiostatic electricity. So the pyramid, for the most part, was broken. The machine was broken. But that particular device added a power boost to what it was generating and was sending that through the apex of the pyramid. And the evidence of this is that in that room, there's evidence of a huge explosion where a part of that granite box that they're trying to say was a sarcophagus is missing. A huge corner piece is missing, and you could look across the room 20 feet away where it impacted solid granite and left the same exact indentation in the solid granite that it impacted across the room. So there was an explosion in that room at some point, a massive energetic explosion. So when you walk into the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid, you're standing inside of an actual power generation unit. You're standing inside of something that used to be used to create energy. So you're standing inside of a machine, which is wild. It's a gigantic machine. It also has so many things added to it and built into the structure. The encoded knowledge in the structure itself is mind-blowing. From just multiplying the stones by the base, you can get the days in the year, the days in a tropical year, a sidereal year. You can get the distance from the earth to the moon based on the calculations of the stones in the pyramid, the distance from the earth to the sun, the circumference of the sun. You can even get the speed of the earth on its axis, and you can even get the speed of the earth around the sun. You can get the speed of the sun around the Milky Way supermassive black hole, and even the speed of the Milky Way around its local cluster. So we're talking about a time capsule of astrophysical knowledge combined with the fact that it also generated electricity, and I think it also sent out communications on the hydrogen frequency.
And one of the greatest questions has got to be how. Also, how did they know? And one of the sponsors of today's podcast is someone who's teaching people just your everyday Joe how to astral project. That's one of their things. Obviously, it helps you to, let's say, become more clear in your thinking. You become more calm. Obviously, it's in order to astral project, you need to do a few things that are also beneficial for your everyday life, which is one of the big reasons why it's so successful. And so my question is, how did they know? Because we don't have any evidence of telescopes. We don't have any evidence of space travel, let's say, in the way that we know space travel, by putting some gas and some fuel and then just shooting our way out there. How would they know?
Well, we have some things that give us a clue as to what their technological prowess was. First thing is, we know the Dogon tribe, they were the original inhabitants of Egypt, the Dogons, before they got taken over and moved out to Mali, Africa, where they've been for thousands of years. But they know about a trinary star system named Sirius. They knew about that long before astrophysicists in the world knew it existed. They knew about the orbitable period of those 3 stars that orbit each other in that star system, and one of those stars can't be seen with the naked eye. And they claim that this knowledge was brought to them by the Nommo, beings that used to live on a planet orbiting that star before it ran out of fuel and turned into a white dwarf. They came to Earth to create a breakaway civilization. They brought that knowledge with them. Then we have the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the Hopi, the Lakota. They have the same story. The Star Brothers brought them the knowledge of the stars. The Mayans, they were brought by the sky gods. They brought the knowledge, right? So no matter where you go on this planet, all of a sudden we keep hearing the same story. The Aboriginals that I did a walkabout in the Australian outback. They told me that their verbal handed down history for thousands of years was that we were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians. Same thing with the Hopi tribe. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So we have evidence that of some type of contact evidence through histories that have been handed down and even written in text that occurred at some point. The book of Enoch, which is not in the Bible, even though Enoch was highly revered because he's mentioned as being highly revered in the Bible, but his book was left out. Why was his book left out of the Bible? Well, his book talks about beings coming from space to Earth, engaging mankind, teaching us how to make weapons, perfume, makeup, how to make beer and hang out and have fun and all these crazy things. And then they take Enoch in a ship and take him to space and they bring him back. In the Bible, they claim he never came back. He went to heaven without even having died. No, it was an appointed departure date where he left all of the information to his sons on how to run the estate. And then he came back in the future, years later, but he was brought back to Earth again. And so they decided, well, we better not put this alien abduction inside the Bible, so we'll leave this book out. The only Bible that has a copy of the book of Enoch in it is the Ethiopian Bible. That's one of the oldest Bibles that exist. So we know we have these encounters. So they must have had technology. The book of Ezekiel in the Bible, the wheels within wheels, another UFO sighting in the biblical text. And then we have the Black Knight satellite, which I did a whole documentary on. This object is still above our head right now, orbiting our planet in a polar orbit. It was witnessed by the Russians in the 1960s when they were sending up Sputnik. It changed course to follow Sputnik. Tesla talked about this object. In the 1950s, it made the 2 different newspapers. Ham radio operators were picking up a signal from this object. 1960, it makes Time magazine. It's up there for a fact because all eyes are on the sky because we're trying to beat Russia to get satellites in space, and we're all launching experiments. We discover a polar orbiting satellite and giving off a special type of a frequency or signal, which was decoded by an astrophysicist. This astrophysicist decoded it and said, this thing is pointing to the 𝗪𝗟𝗡 constellation. What does that mean? When you begin to research the 𝗪𝗟𝗡 constellation, the first thing I do when I research constellations or stars or planets or moons, I go look at the tablets and find out who owned them. Well, who does the Sumerian tablets say owns 𝗪𝗟𝗡? Enlil from the Sumerian tablets, also known as Yahweh in the Bible. He owns the constellation. So could it be that that object that's still up there looking at us, maybe monitoring our planet for 13,000 years, they estimate it's been up there, and sending a signal back to Epsilon as to a reporting as to what's going on with this breakaway civilization that became an abandoned seed colony, Earth. So it's a lot going on. It's just so much going on, but I believe that they had the technology. How would you know how to build the Great Pyramid where it's located? You have to have a satellite. The Great Pyramid is located at the center of Earth's landmass, not the center of the Earth, but the center of Earth's landmass. You would need a polar orbiting satellite that can scan the land as the Earth rotates on its axis and take swaths of data, stitch it together, and make the calculation on landmass. It's also the average height of all the peaks on Earth. You need to count the peaks, which means you have to have a polar orbiting satellite. And as the Earth spins on its axis, you would count all the peaks, the heights and the depths, and then you would multiply that and divide it to come up with the total number of the average height. And then you would say, this is the height of the pyramid. So all these things point to a certain level of advanced technology that will be required in order to construct them. So through circumstantial evidence, we have a case.
One of the most important things you can do if you're trying to earn more money is learn new skills. Stacking skills is one of the greatest things you can do in order to bring value to yourself and the people around you, especially one like learning a new language. I bet most of you guys had no idea that I could speak 9 languages and that we have a YouTube channel with almost 100,000 subscribers where I do exclusively just that. And we break down the method for exactly what an idiot guy like me has done in order to do this. It's not complex, it's not complicated, and most of you guys have probably used the traditional method, and the traditional method sucks. That's why you can't speak any Spanish after 4 years of going to high school and taking Spanish week in, week out. If you want to learn to speak a language the fastest, easiest, and most natural way, click the link right down below, 𝗪𝗟𝗡𝗃 Languages. We've got the method for you. Check it out.
And you talked about the Book of Enoch, right? And I know another one of the, let's say, controversial books, I think it's the Book of Thomas, the Gnostic text, that
Gnostics
didn't get included, right? And there's a number of them, and I think we only found them, right? Was it in the 50s potentially, down out there in Israel or in a cave, or and so I'm curious also, of all these texts, because you can now, thanks to the internet and everything, you can go read these, you can go check them out. There are books and there are scholars that have kind of broken them down. They obviously stay out of the mainstream and they don't get any mainstream time, but you can go check it out. Where else should people kind of look for stuff like this? Because the church, like this is it's been an ongoing joke that I don't understand why I can't just walk into the Vatican library. Why not? I understand it's yours technically, but if you're working for all of us,
right,
let me have a little read and get an understanding in there, right? What do you have? What is this? There's so many different texts out there with such great knowledge, and we've had to piece it together. People like you have to go around the world, read different texts that you can't get to. So are there other places that have stuff like this, and just looking at the church and the Vatican and the way that things have been run and how they've done whatever it is that they've been doing over these years? Where else could people look for hidden texts, hidden knowledge, and stuff like that?
There's a lot of hidden texts and knowledge in Tibet. Tibet has literally thousands of unread, untouched books that haven't been touched for eons. They're just sitting on shelves, enclosed and kept away. There's some recent videos. I posted a clip of it maybe about 3 or 4 months ago on Forbidden Knowledge, the inside of that ancient library of knowledge. And so there's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of knowledge in text, believe it or not, that's being hidden by the U.S. government on underground bases and storage facilities. There's a lot of text, of course, in the 5 Mile Underground Archive, along with many other things other than even text inside the inside of Rome, at the Vatican. There's a lot of ancient text being hidden in Germany. There's some being hidden in Africa, in Egypt, actually in the backs of some of these museums, stuff that they won't let anyone see. At the 𝗪𝗟𝗏𝗂𝗓𝗏 Museum in Oxford, England. Okay, at the British Museum in London. I mean, so you can just go through these places. There's so much stuff that's behind the scenes that are just still being sitting there and blocked away in big safes or hidden behind closed doors in these places that are locked, that the average person will never get a chance to see, touch, feel, read, smell. A lot of that ancient knowledge that's sitting there that could free mankind from its bonds is right there on this planet right now.
And a last question before you get out of there. You also have talked about advanced technology that has been, of course, hidden. And I don't think anyone in their right mind doesn't think that most of the governments, obviously, and also specifically the U.S. government, doesn't have technology that is light years ahead of what we are all using in our daily lives. Do you have any idea of what might be trickling down to us, or what would be some of the stuff other than, I mean, I know energy is one big thing, but what else might you touch on? Because I know you were in that tech field.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if people who are looking to invest, I would get away from, and I'm not a financial advisor, but I wouldn't dive too hard into EV companies. EV is going to be going to primarily mostly corporations or business use. EVs are going to die out for public civilian use, and civilians are going to be kind of curbing towards hydrogen-powered cars. That's going to be the next big thing. EVs are not sustainable. They're being built by technology, by forced child labor in these unmanaged mines that could be taken over by any type of a military force or rogue agents at any given time and hold the world hostage. And they know this. And so EVs they're also very toxic for the land. They're more toxic than the engine block. So we're going to be moving away from EVs. Everything is going to be going towards hydrogen. I made a video about this on YouTube a year ago. It got 200,000-300,000 views on YouTube. And then just about maybe 3 months ago, at the time I made that video, Elon Musk was against hydrogen cars. There's no way in the world it's ever going to work. It's not going to be anything. We can't do it. Now he's got the H model coming out in a few months. And I think the price of his cars have dropped by almost 30%. They're going to just close those things out eventually. And you'll see the hydrogen car. The GM president just came out 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago and said, we're moving out of EVs, we're going to hydrogen. And several other car makers have also decided to move to hydrogen. This is a year after I made my video when I told everybody, get out of EVs, everything is going to go to hydrogen. Again, I was right. Hydrogen is the next big push. Rolls-Royce created the very first hydrogen jet engine for an airplane, which flew coast to coast. And so even airplanes, all airliners are going to be going towards hydrogen-powered engines because they can't use electric, obviously. So this is going to be the next big thing, hydrogen, not EV, but hydrogen. Also, we're going to see the Tesla robots coming out. I forget the exact name of those things, but those things are going to be released as well. They'll be in some homes of some very rich people initially, and then over time, over the next 10 years, probably I would say 1/3 of the population will have one of those types of robots, whether it's his or someone else's, but they'll have one in their house. That's a fact. And we're going to start seeing more energy frequency healing. We'll start seeing finally, after all the multi-trillions of dollars spent on cancer research that have gone to the pockets of fat cats who've done nothing with the money, but give out more chemotherapy and radiation, we're finally going to begin to see the use of a frequency weapon against cancer, a frequency beam that will match something I talked about on Gaia in 2017. I talked about this on the Buzzsaw TV episode, that all we need is a frequency that matches the harmonic frequency of the atoms vibrating in the tumor, and you can destroy it by canceling the frequency of the vibration and leave all the surrounding tissue intact. Well, that actually exists now. Same thing I talked about 8 years ago. It actually exists, and it's finally going to get freed up and be used for people. So we're going to see within the next 5 to 10 years, frequency healing for cancer.
That's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Yeah. And a good place to leave it for the next one. We'll dig more into all of that and everything else. Listen, we will link to everything that we've talked about. I know it was about a massive manual in the description box today, but you guys check out everything Billy is up to. Always one of the most interesting people to talk to, Billy. Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.